Hi, boys and girls. This is Mr. Chalfant, and it is Friday afternoon, September 11th, and I want to read you a story called Hattie and the Wild Waves. This is from an author who's written a lot of books for kids, and she also did the story in the pictures, just like Aliki, just like Tommy DePola, just like Patricia Polacco. So we've read a lot of stories where the story and the pictures are by the same person. Here's a picture of her now, all grown up, and some other stories she's written. One of them is another favorite of mine called The Ox Cart Man. I like her drawings and I like her stories. Let's take a look at when this book was written. We seem to like to do that, or at least I like to do it. Boys and girls, this book was written in 1990. Mr. Chalfant was a teacher for 1 year when she wrote this. And I love this. This book is in memory of my mother, May Bossert Cooney, and for her offspring. That means all of the kids and the grandkids that came after. It's hard to imagine that your parents and grandparents used to be little kids, but they did. This is a great reminder that they have lots of stories, and you need to just ask them about that. Maybe you could tell one of your parents' stories too. Maybe they can be part of your heart map. Anyway, here we go. Hattie and the Wild Waves. You can see she lives near the ocean, and I can see the wind is blowing. And look at that. There's a fair in the background. The big red brick house on Bushwick Avenue was the first house that Hattie could remember. Papa had built it for Mama. Right after they were married, each room was finished and paneled in dark and gleaming woods, a different wood for each room. Oak, mahogany, black walnut, butternut, and cherry. Papa was in the woodwork business. Had been ever since he came to America and went to work with his brother, Heinrich, in Brooklyn. He wanted nothing but the best for Mama. Moldings and sashes, sidings, flooring, fine woodwork. They've started their own business. Boys and girls, so many people have come to America and started their own business. That's fantastic. Here's the inside of their house. When I grow up, said Fifi, as she looked at Mama's and Papa's wedding picture in the family album, I shall be a beautiful bride too. She tossed her curls. Ha, said Mama. Oh, I'm sorry. Ja, said Mama. Ja. And she nodded. And that means yes. And I, said Volley, who had been born the day the yacht Volunteer won the cup races, I shall work with Papa in the business. And I shall make lots of money. He puffed up his chest with importance. And what about you, mein Liebchen? My little one, Papa asked the child at his knee. And there she is. I shall be a painter, said little Hattie promptly. Fifi and Volley exploded. They burst laughing. Dummkopf, they shrieked. Little stupid head, girls don't paint houses. But Hattie was not thinking about houses. She was thinking about the moon in the sky and the wind in the trees and the wild waves of the ocean. Boys and girls, even in a family, sometimes your siblings might make fun of your ideas. They might make fun of some things that you think or that are important for you. And how would that make you feel? Be careful that you're a nice brother or sister when you're family members share things that are important to them, and never use words that are mean. Have you ever played cards around the table? Here they are. It looks like they're in the kitchen. The other people who lived in the house were Clara Geisick, the cook, Little Mouse, Clara's small daughter, Mary Wagner, the maid, and a series of young girls who looked after the children. The nursemaids never stayed long. Those are the ones that watch after the kids. Fifi and Volley teased them without mercy. Then Lena would scold sharply, maybe even slap a child. Oh my goodness. And that would be the end of Lena or Lizzie or Lily. Clara Geisecke and Mary Wagner, however, stayed on forever, gossiping in the kitchen, drinking coffee, and playing rummy. That's a card game, with Fifi and Volley. And Hattie, in the corner, contentedly scribbled away, making pictures on brown butcher's paper under the admiring eyes of Little Mouse. And there you can see her in the back. And she's drawing on the paper, and somebody is interested in what she's doing. Schon, schon, Little Mouse would murmur. So pretty, pretty. Boys and girls, they're speaking a language called German because they came to America from another country. A lot of people that have come to America have immigrated here. That means they've come from another place. Fräulein Hattie, always she is making such nice pictures, they said, looking up from their cards. Hattie loved picture making. Some of her happiest times were when she had a bad cold and Mama kept her in bed for 2 or 3 days running. Then she could make pictures from morning until night, interrupted only by bowls of milk toast and chicken broth. Those are things that are good for your stomach when you're not feeling well. And she would just be able to make picture after picture after picture. Isn't that fun? This looks like a big family gathering. Maybe it's a special occasion, or maybe they just have a big family. Let's find out. On Sundays and holidays, the uncles and aunts and cousins gathered at the Bushwick Avenue house. They arrived by carriage or horse car, prosperous and plump, Germans who had come to America in the pursuit of happiness and fortune. They had founded their lumber businesses and breweries across the river from New York, in Brooklyn, in Flatbush, and Greenpoint, and Bushwick. Around Mama's table, they would sit on high-backed, heavy nutwood chairs and eat. They ate for hours, chicken and dumplings, great red roasts, and pink hams swamped in raisin sauce. Ein klein bisschen Kartoffel? Mama would ask. A little more potatoes? For there was always a great deal of Kartoffeln, clouds of mashed potatoes heaped high in china dishes, and gravy boats full of dark, delicious gravy, and maybe so much more. The children would grow restless, their eyes drooped, and the parents went on with the family gossip, sipping claret. That must be a kind of drink for maybe just moms and dads, just for the adults. Have you ever sat at the table and you get kind of bored with the parents just talking? And look, this is Little Mouse, who's the daughter of the cook, and she's helping to serve. I wonder if she ever gets to sit down there. They're looking at a painting. Finally, Mama would rise and lead the company into the parlor where she kept her 2 treasures. One, a large oil painting hanging over the sofa. The other, the beautiful rosewood piano that Papa had given her. The painting was Cleopatra's Barge, painted by Opa Krippendorf, who was Mama's father and an artist. It was his masterpiece. Beautiful, sighed the aunts, and such a frame, approved the uncles. But Papa, who knew something about boats, pronounced the barge, that is the boat, unseaworthy. In other words, he said it would never float. Later, Hattie went to her room and drew a beautiful barge. Ha! Ja, said Papa, that one will float. So Hattie must have been watching all the boats out on the water and knew how to draw one just from memory. Do you know how to draw some things from memory? You actually get to practice some drawing for our Fun Friday today. There's the piano. Sometimes Mama would sit down at her piano and play for the company. Her fingers would fly up and down the keyboard, while Hattie sat, bewitched by the trills and grace notes of the spinning song, and listened to the mockingbird. She was fascinated by hearing her mother play. Oh, to play like Mama, thought Hattie. Mama's people were all musicians and artists. Mama had been a piano teacher. She was playing the organ in church when Papa first saw her. He married her 3 weeks later. Wow, that's so fast. After the children were born, Mama would hold them on her lap and play lullabies. Soon she was giving them music lessons. So this is a picture of Mama when she was younger, and the babies and the young kids sitting and listening to her play music. But said Mama, Hattie's hands will never be large enough to stretch an octave. She will never get beyond the happy farmer. But I can whistle, said Hattie, just like John the coachman. Said Mama, nice girls don't whistle. Back then it seemed they had lots of rules for girls and boys, especially for the girls. Mama said her hands are not big enough to stretch between the piano keys. Have you ever played the piano? You have to use your fingers just right. Looks like they're in a dressing room, and looks like somebody's making a dress for them. Mama taught the girls needlework, but Hattie's French knots were disgracefully grimy, and her stitches were far from even. What beautiful needlework Fifi does, the aunts exclaimed, unwrapping their Christmas handkerchiefs. But Hattie will never learn to sew, said Mama. In fall and winter, the children went to school. Then in the spring, Mrs. Lehman would come to stay at the Bushwick Avenue house and help Mama sew new clothes for summer. Those were trying days for Hattie, standing still while patterns were fitted and the pins pricked into her flesh. Back then, boys and girls, you didn't necessarily go to the store to get clothes. Some clothes had to be made exactly for your size. And this family has a little bit of money, so they can afford to have somebody come and make their clothes. When I was growing up, I often had to get my clothes from Goodwill or secondhand stores or from my older brother. Fifi enjoyed every minute preening in front of the mirror as the pretty dresses took shape. Fifi, the older sister, I think really likes all of the pretty dresses. Every night, Mama put Hattie's straight hair up in little leather-covered crimpers to make it curl. Trying to be pretty is a lot of work, sighed Hattie to Little Mouse. But when Mama discovered Hattie sleeping with a clothespin on her nose to keep it from growing any longer, she scolded. Said Mama, just be glad you have all your limbs. Look at that house. And it's a house right on the water. When the summer clothes were ready, the eyelet trim on the petticoats and the nightgowns all threaded with pink and blue ribbons, Mama packed the trunks and the whole family moved out to far Rockaway to the summer house beside the ocean. This was Hattie's favorite place. Do you remember when we talked about favorite places to be for your writing? Something on your heart map, a favorite place. Think about favorite places that you have for your writing stories. There, too, the uncles and aunts and cousins came, taking the open horse cars to the Rockaways. On the shady verandas, that means the shady front porches that are covered, the parents rocked and drank lemonade and took deep breaths of salt air. The women knitted and sewed and discussed the family. The men discussed business. Very important. The city of New York was growing. People were crossing the East River and moving to the suburbs of Brooklyn, to Flatbush and Greenpoint and Bushwick. Uncle Wilhelm expanded his brewery, and Uncle Otto opened an elegant beer garden. Papa built houses for the people, rows and rows of houses, all very much alike. But the people will get mixed up, said Hattie, especially in the fog. I will have to do something about that, said Papa. And he painted the houses all different colors. Hattie sure came up with good ideas there. And there they are at their summer house. Have you ever gone on a summer vacation? Somewhere where there's water? Maybe you've gone camping or for a day trip to the beach. Oh my. They have a boat too. This family sure has a lot of things. Sometimes Papa took the family sailing on his beautiful boat, the Coronet. The water sparkled, the waves slapped at the hull. At times, Mama napped in her mahogany and pink velvet stateroom below, but always Hattie stood in the bow. The bow of the boat is the very front where the boat is going in that direction. And the moist salt breezes took all the curl out of her hair. When Hattie got home, she ran up to her room and got out her paint box. Soon, her walls were covered with pictures. Boys and girls, do you know what she's doing when she's standing in front of the boat? She's taking pictures in her mind. She's remembering and imagining. Oftentimes, Hattie wandered down the beach by herself, whistling and dreaming dreams while her little dog Ebby scampered about her. The waves scalloped in and out, lapping at their feet. The sky was the blue of heaven and the sea went on forever. I wish that summer would never end, thought Hattie. Sometimes the ocean turned green and wild and the sky grew black. Oh, Ebby, she would say, picking up the little dog, what are the wild waves saying? Hattie and the Wild Waves. That's the name of our book. Whatever they were saying, they had the answer that she knew as she walked beside the sea. So the summers passed at Far Rockaway. Fall came and they returned to Bushwick Avenue. The leaves fell and Fifi and Volley and Hattie went back to school. My goodness, they have a big house. One winter day, as the children bent over their homework, Papa brought them a remarkable piece of news. He had just bought the family a new summer house called the Oaks, a house as big as a castle, far out on Long Island, far, far away from Far Rockaway. And look at that house. My goodness, it's a big house. But lieber Max, said Mama, I wouldn't know how to run such a house. You will, mein Schatzi, said Papa, for you will have a butler and footman and upstairs maids and downstairs maids, and of course, Clara Giesecke in the kitchen and John the coachman in the stables. We will be like princesses, cried Fifi. And a prince, said Volley, not wanting to be left out. Only Hattie was unsure. What do you think she's going to miss from the other summer house? What would the wild waves be saying at Far Rockaway next summer? She would not find out, for Papa sold the Far Rockaway house, and they moved far out on Long Island to the big new house. Sometimes things change in your family. You move houses, or you don't go back to a special place that was special for you. Sometimes kids can't choose the things they do. Every morning, the children's horses were brought around to the porte cochere for their daily rides. My goodness, they have horses for riding. And every morning, Mama put on little rubber boots and a black satin apron and went into her conservatory to water the plants. In the afternoon, there were tennis parties. Papa had given Hattie a tame macaw, that's a kind of a bird, which was trained to retrieve the tennis balls. Oh, that was another wonder of this new life. Some days, Little Mouse and Hattie walked in the deer park, their arms around each other, telling their secret. just like girls like to do. I'm going to be a teacher, said Little Mouse. And I, said Hattie, am going to be an artist. I know, said Little Mouse. Now and then, the uncles and aunts and cousins came out on the Long Island Railroad for visits, and everyone was much impressed with the Oaks, the new house, but it wasn't the same as the house by the beach in Far Rockaway. Boys and girls, have you ever seen a deer out in the wild? Summer began to come. Suitors began to come courting Fifi. Clara Giesecke had no time now for gossip and rummy, no time for Fraulein Hattie. Little Mouse was busy all the time cutting up vegetables and polishing silver, and John the coachman was always having to meet guests at the station, for there were many parties nowadays. So Hattie walked in the deer park by herself with Ebby. Or she took her paint box down to the pond and painted the black swans from China. She's getting older, and she's still painting. Remember those things that you like to do when you're younger? Some of those will stick with you. One day, a new suitor appeared. He was in the lumber business. He had a white bull terrier named Snide and an automobile. He was very suitable, and he was the one Fifi chose. Then Mrs. Lehman and an old woman known simply as Tante from Jersey took over one of the upstairs sitting rooms and proceeded to make Fifi's trousseau, hem-stitching and cross-stitching and feather-stitching. They stayed for weeks. Mama herself did all the monograms, but the wedding dress itself came from Paris. Fraulein Hattie will be next, said Mrs. Lehman. She smiled a big smile full of gold teeth. She's saying, Hattie, when you get older, you'll get married too. And maybe this is it. The aunts all took their furs out of their camphor closet. Everyone put on their finest clothes and came to the wedding. There was caviar and sweetbreads and wine. There were jumbo squibs and artichokes with hollandaise sauce. There was tutti frutti ice cream and champagne and Corona cigars. Hattie was the maid of honor. There she is. Volley was the best man. There he is. Papa gave Fifi away. Mama cried, and Fifi was a beautiful bride. And there she is. I am not Fraulein Fifi anymore, said the bride proudly. From now on, I am Mrs. Joseph Patrick Coynahan. I like being a Fraulein, said Hattie to Little Mouse. A Mrs. is forever, Mouse. Someday, maybe, we will want it to be forever, said Little Mouse. She's saying that maybe you want to get married when you get older, or maybe you don't. Boys and girls, you'll see what happens for you. Look at that big building. And there's the green water again. Now, Volley became a businessman. All summer, he rode the Long Island Railroad with Papa back and forth to work in town. If only there was a nice hotel in Brooklyn, Papa wished. And since there wasn't, he built one. When it was finished, Papa sold the Bushwick Avenue house. In the wintertime, Mama and Papa and Hattie went to live on the top floor of Papa's hotel, with a splendid view of the East River and New York City, but Volley preferred to live at his club. At mealtimes, Gus the waiter trundled in a little cart bearing silver-domed dishes out of which came their breakfast, lunch, and dinners. From the parlor where Mama had her rosewood piano and Cleopatra's barge, that's the painting, Hattie sketched tugs and cargo boats going up and down the river. Looking downriver from Papa's library, she could paint the Statue of Liberty, and I don't see it here. I wish she would have put it in the picture. She could paint the Statue of Liberty and the ocean beyond, but too often Hattie had to go shopping or play Russian bank with Mama. So Hattie still lives at home with her mother and father. Downstairs on Sunday, Hattie sat by herself in the hotel's palm room under the beautiful blue and white and gold ceiling and listened to a strings orchestra play tunes from Die Fledermaus and the Merry Widow. If only Little Mouse could see this room and hear the music, thought Hattie. But Little Mouse had gone away to become a teacher. On Tuesdays, Hattie went with Mama and Papa to the opera at the Academy of Music, And Mama wore her diamond tiara, that's a little crown that she wears, and draped her powdered shoulders in tulle. They would sit in their seats in box 4 above the kettle drum, and from time to time Mama would hand around the little silver box of candied jujubes. Papa, taking one, would smile proudly. One Tuesday evening, as waves of music filled the opera house, a young woman down on the stage sang her heart out. Hattie in box 4 sat transfixed. She's amazed at the singer. The time had come, she realized, for her to also do what she wanted to with all of her heart, and that was to paint. The next day, Hattie put on her coat and hat and marched down to the Art Institute. Her business accomplished, she took the trolley out to Coney Island. It was cold and blowy and spitting snow. Most of the rides were shut down, but the little booth containing the wax gypsy fortune teller was open. Hattie approached the glass-fronted booth. She slipped a coin in the slot. "What is my future to be?" she whispered. A little pink card appeared in the opening below. "You will make beautiful pictures," said the card. Hattie walked along the deserted beach, holding the little card. The waves reared up, they crested and broke. "You will make beautiful, beautiful pictures," said the wild waves. Over and over and over they said the words. "Oh, yes," breathed Hattie. "Yes, I will." Boys and girls, that feeling of what you want to do with your life, the thing that is special for you, is important to listen to. "I have something to tell you," Hattie said to Mama and Papa the next morning at breakfast. "Was ist los?" asked Mama anxiously. "Is something the matter?" Hattie folded her napkin. She put it in her napkin ring. Her eyes shone. "I am going to be an artist," she said. "Just like Opa," said Mama, smiling. Opa is the grandmother. "No," said Hattie, "just like me." Boys and girls, as you grow up, the things that you choose to do might be similar to what other people do, but it's your life, and you get to do the things that you love to do. That's our story, Hattie and the Wild Waves, and I hope you enjoyed it. Bye for now.